All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, excited to be talking to an individual set to compete at Unified MMA 48, which goes down on December the 16th. An intriguing super lightweight championship fight positioned as the main event. We have Shane Campbell taking on Darren Smith Jr., and always good getting to talk to Shane on the show and welcome him on. How's your day going so far, man?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Thanks for having me there. Yeah, you caught me right after the change up in opponents here in the last couple of days, so it's good timing with the interview here.
Yeah, it's curious. I was actually getting ready to interview another fighter on one of the unified cards coming up here, and I saw your post where you were saying small change of plans, new opponent, but I would think that based on your career arc and how close some of these cancellations have happened with opponents for you, I would feel like you're pretty, adaptable and composed and all that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really care, so makes no difference to me. I mean, outside of the UFC, there's no one really that poses any threat to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're in such a good spot in that regard, too. I mean, like you were supposed to fight Alex White, former, UFC veteran and stuff like that, but another, tenured kind of opponent, too, and stuff like that. But moreover, it seems like you're excited to be home in Ontario and everything like that. It seems like it's been a little while since you've gotten to, compete out here and everything like that. How are you feeling about, getting to compete in Ontario? Probably some more, family and friends able to come out, or how are you feeling with that?
Well, yeah, there's many, hundreds of friends that have the opportunity to come out and watch me live. That hasn't got to watch me live in probably over a decade. So I know there's a few of them there in Ontario that even came down to Vegas when I fought there. But other than the real diehard fans, hundreds of people haven't seen me fight live in Ontario for maybe over a decade. So really fun opportunity.
Yeah, and it looks like, at least per your Tapology, it looked like you were born in St. Catharines there and had a training pass with House of Champions and stuff like that too. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting one for sure. That'll be, quite the partisan presence with the audience there, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. My amateur kickboxing career really flourished in southern Ontario, so everywhere from Windsor, Kitchener, Cambridge, Mississauga, Toronto, Barrie, Ontario, Hamilton, Stony Creek, St. Catharines, all those areas. There's so many of the people that have watched me right from the beginning of my career.
Yeah, and it seemed like, you were kind of having fun with it with some social media posts, but it seems like you were looking to at least get another fight going this year. It seemed like maybe there was some level of, I don't want to say frustration necessarily, but it seemed like you wanted to very much get in another fight this calendar year. I saw you had that post where you were saying currently training out of a sea can in Fox Creek until someone grows a pair. So how are you feeling just getting another one in this calendar year?
Well, yeah, here in Canada, there's been many requests. We've asked a lot of the other Canadian fighters to fight me for any of my unified titles, but we've come up short with people that actually accepted there. So a little bit of frustration. I would like to see, there's the Canadian talent to really step up to the challenge, but we've had to reach out to one of Holland's champions. Unified brought in a Holland champion there, and now we're reaching out to more Americans. I guess there just isn't as much of a talent pool in Canada, and some of the people that are kind of close to the UFC themselves, they don't want to take the risk with such a dangerous fighter in me.
Yeah, it is a hard opponent to match for sure, which, probably stymieing for you. You're still ultimately wanting to go out there and compete, but you touched on bringing in certain international competition, and the last time we spoke was a bit before you were fighting Hubert Gevin, and that was when you were fighting at 155, but it's going to be 165 pounds for this one. Do you feel like you're more, optimized in one weight category versus the other, or are you kind of comfortable floating between those two?
I'm a massive 155er and actually kind of a small 170 pounder, so my best weight class would be 160, 165. With a little bit of time and packing on some weight, I should really be a 170er, I would imagine. But it's funny you touch base on training out of a sea can for the fight. But yeah, and as times change, I got a real job and I went up and worked the pipeline there for a little bit. And the timing was quite good because having free cafeteria food and all you can eat all day, I definitely packed on some weight for this fight.
How's that been though? Like, I mean, just the general experience working on the pipeline and stuff like that. Like, has it been at all like beneficial in the sense of like getting away from the frustrations of trying to get like a fight locked in and you can allocate your attention to other things, or like how's that been?
I mean, it was definitely an interesting experience. One of the biggest things for me was like I would rather work piecework, so this job was really like finding a way to look busy but not actually doing anything was a big part of the job, and that's just not something that I'm usually very good at. But it's always nice to dabble in different experiences in life and give you an appreciation for not working and just training all day.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying in that sense. Just in touching on the last fight there, though, I mean, like, what were your, I guess, main takeaways from the Kyle Preplik fight there? Like, it seemed like a pretty thorough performance, like getting the unanimous decision win in March of this year. Like, how would you, I guess, characterize the whole experience, performance, etc.?
He's definitely just coming out of the UFC too himself. Coming out of the UFC, he got a win, so he was one of the most qualified, competitors for challenging me for my belts there. But it was a great matchup. I felt good. There was a few things that I've never trained before that arose in the fight, and I got to kind of put my Shaolin intuitions into action. And watching the video afterwards, I was pretty pleased with a few of the movements that I came out with, and it was definitely a fun, exciting fight from start to finish. That scrap was just that. It was a scrap the whole way through, and that's what I appreciate. I love that stuff.
Yeah, and it seemed like you were able to like even further kind of optimize just the body after the fight too. Like I saw you had a video talking about like getting some knee surgery a bit after, and it seemed like before that fight I had a knee surgery booked, and I booked it for the week after the fight so I could deal with that. But I mean, I had a Baker's cyst behind my knee, which prevented I didn't have much extension on that knee, and so I had that for the three fights I had this year. That injury was there with me for all of them. But that is a huge reason why I am so diverse in all my movements and techniques, because I'll take a fight with this injury, whatever it may be, and I'll learn to fight a different way to not have to utilize that limb or whatever the injury is imposing on. Yeah, and smart for the, I guess, remaining stretch here, because I saw you have that, or it was rather an article with like the Unified website saying you've got about like 5 years left of fighting at an elite level. So, I mean, a timely kind of procedure in that sense to, go with like that kind of thing, like be as optimized as you can for that sort of stretch. Oh, absolutely. I mean, no one can buy more time, and it's running out for all of us. So I've had a pretty fun career, but it can never last forever. Yeah, no, for sure. And it seems like in like even a broader sense, you're kind of just looking at the future and just like personal ingenuity, etc. Like I saw you were like trying to figure out how to like grow your own veggies and getting the eggs going and stuff like that. So how has that been there? Like just preparing the knowledge base was how you phrased it there. With the onslaught of the pandemic, I mean, everyone kind of really came to the conclusion that especially at the beginning, we need to grow our own stuff. Seeing all these food chain shortages and blockages here and blockages there, and the government being able to kind of just turn off your bank account so you're not allowed to buy anything. And a lot of people came to the conclusion that we need to be more invested in being self-sustainable, whether that's growing our own food or even being able to live like 2 weeks without going into a store. Not everyone can do that, especially in much of the bigger cities like downtown Toronto's and Vancouver's, and many of those people wouldn't last 2 weeks without getting into a store, right? So this last couple of years, I learned a lot. I learned how to make my own quinine. I learned how to, dive into native medicine, where most everything we want from
what we get from the effects of Advil, we can get from a willow tree too. If you learn how to process the bark and the leaves and what have you, there's so many more ways than just buying into the big box store options.
Yeah, like things like laboon tea and rat root and different things like that, like native medicines.
Many stuff that's just right there at our fingertips if we just know about it or do a little bit of research.
Yeah, and I would feel like there'd be a lot of transferable skill from just what you do as a martial artist, as far as just like being dedicated to a certain lifestyle and kind of like following through with the process and stuff like that. Like, is that a fair characterization? Like, is there any benefit from that to learning these new skills and things like that?
Oh, just the goal of self-preservation and doing good for yourself is kind of, it carries over, but it's funny that not everyone feels that way, right? Many of us, especially in the last couple of years, have gone through some self-destructive moments.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, no, fair characterization for sure. But we were talking before about being out in Fox Creek and kind of working there. Like, have you gotten a chance to be at Shaved Bears MMA for this one? I know you've been working with them the last few camps.
Oh yeah, I was working 6 days on, 1 off, so it was a 4-hour drive, but I would drive out for Sunday sparring. So I was getting some of my sparring rounds in there and hitting pads with my girl in Fox Creek too. So I was getting training in. At the same time, I'm as much of a vet as I am. I could not train for 2 months, show up, and still show out.
Yeah, for sure. And it's great that there's so many, I guess, comparable like physique types over at Shaved Bears, like Cole Campbell, Neil Anderson, Mike Scarcello, different guys like that.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Any one of those guys are some of my best training partners.
Yeah, I mean, definitely some very, talented fighters for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting situation because like I was going to ask you if you've, I guess gotten a chance to check out previous like Darren Smith Jr. fights. Like obviously like you found out very recently and probably with the nature of how many fights have fallen out for you, like maybe I guess like a rigid tape study like regimen isn't necessarily your thing. But I guess, have you seen previous fights of his? And if so, like what do you think he does well?
I watched a little bit of one of his fights, and there were some movements where it made me comfortable fighting him anyway. And I don't feel like I'm in a position to really pick and choose any fighter at this point. I pick and choose any opponent. At this point, it's pretty much like who's willing to accept and get in and fight me. But also, some people will say it, but there's cowards like Mike Hill that will sign a contract and then run away the day of the fight. So I also cannot accept a fight against losers like that are actually going to ruin the offer. Like in that scenario, the main event of a fight card can be completely ruined by a piece of shit like that. So it's just, I can't accept to take a fight against certain people that have a reputation of ruining cards and running away and being a coward.
Was that like the worst, I guess, bout withdrawal you've ever experienced just with the proximity to the fight?
For me, absolutely. It was within hours of our actual fight. So I've witnessed it happened to somewhere else where the person's hand was wrapped and they actually, like the fight before theirs, they actually ran out the back door with their hands wrapped and everything. So that's kind of the worst I've seen, but the situation with me there in the Unified was the worst that's ever happened to me, personally.
Yeah, because I saw you had that post a bit ago before the Stephen Beaumont-Michael Hill fight there, and yeah, that one seemed to especially, bother you, and like, I mean, I guess I can't directly understand, like, preparing for something like that, and then it falls out that close to it, but yeah, the example you mentioned there, too, I felt like that also happened on a Unified card. I want to say it was like a featherweight title fight or something, and they like gave the other guy the title by default almost. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine like how, I guess, deflating that whole thing would be.
Yeah, exactly. But this the industry keeps rolling on, and that's that. So
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, you got an opponent lined up here, and it seems like they've got a good resume, like Bellator vet, fought for like, ACB, now ACA, former King of the Cage welterweight champion. So seems like a good replacement opponent in lieu of, what happened with the last opponent. Was that like an injury to your opponent, or do you not necessarily know the...
Yeah, I can't imagine, him not pulling out for anything other than a very legitimate reason. And we're far enough out away, like... Yeah, a broken bone. I didn't really dig deep. Like when Sonny comes to me and says that, the person is out, okay, it is what it is. Let's move on and find the next replacement and go forward. I'm not dwelling on something I can't change anyway.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't know, I guess this is kind of interesting, like just in the sense, like I was talking to him a bit earlier, like I was talking to Jesse Ronson, and he has a fight coming up on the 10th, and he was saying that Unified actually offered him a bout in March against yourself, and you guys have like, past competitive history with one another. Like, I know you were saying you're not in the business of like picking and choosing opponents. It's kind of just like whoever, decides to show up. Like, what would the, I guess, temperature level be on like a Jesse Ronson rematch?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's got a win over me, so how could I ever not want that redemption? He's very qualified. He's a gamer, so I think within Canadian MMA, that is one fight that the Canadian fans would like to see.
Well, yeah, when he was mentioning it to me, I remember when you guys fought, like, I guess it was like a decade plus ago at this point, or at least around a decade, and it kind of, sparked those memories a little bit, and very much piqued my interest now. Like, I feel like you guys are even that much more improved, because like obviously the technique is at a very high level, but I feel like probably the fight IQ with time has really, I guess, bolstered for both sides. So definitely could be an intriguing sequel, like not overlooking this upcoming opponent, but that could be a curious one for the first quarter of next year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as long as my body's going to carry me, I'm willing to fight anyone.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that, just the gameness and wanting to, test yourself against, individuals like that. Definitely something that can be seen throughout your career for sure. But I thought it was cool that you got to go up in a 4-seater a little bit ago. Like, you got to have like a bit of an aerial view and everything like that. Like, I think like you were doing that in like Fort Saskatchewan there, or you got the tour from them rather. Like, what was that whole experience like?
Well, actually, that's Fort Saskatchewan, but it's in Alberta.
yeah, that was kind of confusing me, because I was like, oh, it's like Rogers Place area, but Fort Saskatchewan. I was like, oh, okay, but yeah, how was that?
Yeah, that confuses quite a bit of people, actually. But yeah, that was an interesting one. Yeah, a good friend there. He brought me up in a little 4-seater and did a tour across Edmonton, over Rogers Center, West Edmonton Mall, right over the legislature. It is super cool to get that aerial view of where you live and whatnot. It was very interesting.
And I guess I just wanted to touch on this because I feel like you and like the recuperative measures, like you're always really good about that. Like, are you still doing a lot of like the hyperbaric chambers and a lot of like the, I guess, like active recovery kind of stuff, like being in nature and different things like that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I run the hyperbaric chambers like for other clients as well. And then when there's the time, I'm absolutely getting in there for that. I use ozone therapy and the PEMF machine, personal electric magnetic frequency. So there's lots of naturopathic things that we offer at Apothec Naturals and Wellness. So I definitely take advantage of all those. And like you said, just being in the wilderness itself, in nature is so therapeutic. But I try to reach out beyond Advils and painkillers for my therapy. Wilderness and other options, good nutrition are kind of what I gear myself towards.
Yeah, you've always struck me as a guy that like is really, diligent about that kind of stuff. And I mean, kind of like tied into the prior point of like, learning how to grow your own food and things of that nature, just like mindful of self-preservation and everything like that. So no, that's good to hear, man.
Thank you. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the last couple of years has definitely driven me to learn what I wasn't savvy to before.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like, I mean, I would hope at least a lot of people could share in that sentiment. I feel like if you didn't improve or kind of change what you were doing after the last couple of years, I mean, you're probably in a bad spot in a lot of ways, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if the last couple of years ever came again, I'm going to be 10 times more prepared than what I was before.
Yeah, definitely, get that sense from you, just always growing and everything like that, and always trying to learn there. But I guess I'm kind of curious because, like, I guess this would be one of the last kind of questions, and maybe just because of the nature of like how hard it is to book fights for you, maybe it's kind of hard to make certain plans like this. But just kind of ending off the calendar year here and entering 2023, do you have certain goals you would like to actualize into reality in the next year? Like anything you've been thinking about in that sense?
No, I mean, this past year I had knee surgery and recovering from that and just kind of getting back in a good mental state. I mean, as a high-performing athlete for so many years, anytime, an injury puts me out for months, it can be really, really tough. It can be tough on the mindset and everything. So just staying focused and staying positive ahead of that was my main goal here. So 2023 is we'll see how this year ends out and kind of play it by ear then. Best case scenario, I make a highlight and sign to the UFC before 2023. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I definitely would love to see that. Definitely would be a cool opportunity to see you get back into the octagon and showcase those skills. But you've been really good with your time, Shane. It's always fun getting to get insights from you ahead of these different fights, but I also want to be mindful of your schedule too. So to that point, is there maybe anything you'd like to add kind of as a parting thought as we're wrapping up here, man?
No, just, thanks for having me. December 16th, tune in if you want to see Shaolin make some more highlights. If there's anything I can, say to the people is take care of yourselves, drink some white pine tea, get in nature, go for a walk, have a good time.
Yeah, it's an awesome parting thought, and this is going to be an awesome event to check out. I'm looking forward to being there at Unified MMA 48 and checking out what's going on. And yeah, it should be a great super lightweight championship fight with Darren Smith Jr. And I mean, if your career is any indicator, it should be another barn burner as per usual. So,
oh, absolutely, we're gonna light the roof on fire.
Yeah, maybe some more Hadoukens and things of that nature, but
I always got a few things up my sleeve.
That you do. And yeah, I mean, if anyone's in the immediate area, very much should check that out. If not, UFC Fight Pass will be broadcasting that. But yeah, to reiterate, thanks so much for coming on and giving great insights as always, man. You have a good rest of your night there, and just looking forward to checking out the fight and being there when it goes down.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care.